Mikey Nye, my neighbor in Southtown. Michael practiced law before pursuing photography full-time. His photography and audio exhibitions, Children of Children, Mental Health, Mental Illness, and about hunger and resilience, have traveled to more than 150 cities across the country and outside the United States. His new traveling exhibition, which opened at the Whitty, and his book, On Blindness and Perception, debuted in 2019. I think that exhibition is in Milwaukee tonight as we speak. Michael is married to poet Naomi Shihab Nye, who is with us tonight. And as a child, he was called Mikey. In middle age, Michael, and now he's back to Mikey. So give it up, Mikey Nye.
Well, first thing I want to say is thank you 15 times to Vicki for your graciousness and your incredible organizational skills. I want to dedicate my short talk this evening to photographer Will Langmore and his family. Will died earlier this year. The title of my presentation is Every Person, Every Place is a Map to Somewhere Else. Immanuel Kant was born in 1724, philosopher in the Age of Enlightenment. At 17 years old, I admired him because of his questions. What do we do in our lives? What can we know? What does it mean to be human? And what can we expect from the future? I was born at midnight between yesterday and today. Newton, Kansas was a small town, famous for wheat fields, high prairies, famous for trains at night. I remember Kansas as having bluer skies. The first time I got into any serious trouble was in the second grade for daydreaming. I was taken to the principal's office. Wait here, Mikey, I'm going to get the principal. For some strange reason, I pushed a large red button and the fire alarm bell began screaming. Sister Mary Elizabeth Ann came running into the office. She was 6'5" tall, smoking a cigarette. She asked me, Mikey, did you press that button? I looked her in the eye and said, Sister, no, I did not. In high school, I worked at the World's Fair in Montreal, Canada. I was a pedicab driver, a three-wheeled bicycle. On my second day at work, I took two heavy tourists. They instructed me to take them down a steep hill to a beer garden. The brakes did not work. It was like skiing down a mountain. I lost control, I hit a tree, and then went into a lake. The fire department had to fish out the passengers with nets. The ambulance took them to the hospital. I did not lose my job, but it's the only time in my life I've been sued. A 7-year-old girl wrote a poem. I asked my mother for a lemon, but she brought me a moon. Whether you receive a lemon or the moon or stars, it all depends on one's openness to others. Metaphor may be the best way to understand complexity. When I was a practicing attorney, I would walk downtown practicing my voir dire examination. I watched light moving on buildings, suitcases lined on curbs. Every street corner was a black and white photograph. I had a hunger, fever to become a photographer. Oh, what a lucky person I am, married to Naomi Shihab Nye, poet, funny girl, generous spirit. Paying attention is her neon light. Naomi carries beautiful words in her pockets. I photographed Naomi and our son Madison while they were sleeping. We put a mattress on the back porch. Soft light filtered through pecan leaves. Watching someone sleep is awareness of being awake. There are no accidental destinations in sleep. To feel your child's rapid heart beating, to watch the soft rise of lungs. Their shared journey made sense. We all need rest and sleep and reverie, places lost in thought. Dreams have airy roots. For the last 30 years, I've used an 8x10 view camera, this camera. Photographs are a reminder of how fragile and brief our lives are. Words and photographs are different moons circling the same planet. In every portrait, there's one side that's never seen. Augustine, the street sweeper, said, "No one's ever asked to take my photograph before." His streets never stay clean. Portraits are a shadow of a person. So much is seen, so much is hidden. Listening is another way of seeing. Passion has a voice that it owns. This young girl begged her parents to have her portrait made. They said, "No, no, no." She ran to this small chair, placed her hands on her knees. She stared deeply into her future. Her determination was her heart beating. My exhibition, My Heart Is Not Blind, a travel and audio and photography exhibit, opened at the Whitty, currently in Milwaukee. I spent 7 years listening to the experience of blindness close up. Perception is deeper and more mysterious than we ever can imagine. Raoul said, "My mother was blind. The sighted world misses out on so much. On my walks, I can hear sounds of birds and dogs and trains, an owl far in the distance. I can hear leaves on trees, the way the wind speaks in soft whispers." Not all blind people are blind, and not all sighted people can see. Whenever one speaks of blindness, it's rarely about newfound awareness. Blindness is not akin to death. It's not being buried alive. It's not blindness forever. It's not fear. Blindness does not break you. It's not a life of misery. It's not the end of the world. Blindness is not a door that's locked. To understand another person, we must consider things from his or her point of view. Paloma says, "Go sit in a dark room and open your ears and listen." The world that I live in is not a terrible place. It's not a miserable world that I exist in. It's a beautiful world, adventurous world, just as relevant as a sighted world. It's different, but it's not less. Last month, Naomi and I took our 3-year-old grandson, Connor, to Miami. Looking out our 11th floor window, Connor and Naomi are reaching for light. Connor says over and over, "We're in Florida, we're in Florida." Listening is the purest form of generosity. It's a window into a larger world than our own. Every place, every person is a map to somewhere else.
Michael Nye. Michael, that was beautiful. Thank you. And the exhibition, My Heart Is Not Blind, was beautiful. The book is beautiful. The multimedia that accompanied the exhibition is beautiful. And I wondered the first time I saw those photographs at the Whitty, how you won the confidence and trust of people that couldn't see you in a conventional sense, and yet were letting you into their lives and letting you capture their images.
Well, what an incredible privilege I had. I spent 7 years, I spent 3 to 4 days with every single person. So we had hours and hours of conversation. And it's extraordinary the amount of discrimination. The exhibit's about understanding. It's about the deep mysteries of perception. It's about adaptation, the brain ability to rewire itself to favor non-visual thinking. It's about discrimination. And so it was just an incredible privilege to spend that much time over those years.
Changing the subject, because I'm familiar with your work overseas, and in my time as a foreign correspondent covering war, I saw 2 photographers that I worked with die. What took you into Iraq when Saddam Hussein was trying to exterminate the Kurds with that enormous 8x10 camera? That was reckless.
It was reckless. It was just an impulse. It was during the war. I was on the freeway. I said, I'm going to go. So I went to the Express News. They
What
stamped
freeway?
281.
Oh, locally.
Locally.
There's
and
no freeways in Iraq.
No, 281. The Express News wrote me a letter, and I flew to Istanbul, Ankara, into northern Iraq with an 8x10 view camera when they were fighting, and interviewed Kurdish refugees and photographed them. And they kept saying, don't forget us.
That's still their message, and thank you so much for your work. Before you go, I have to ask one question that we all wonder. What is it like to live and work with the immortal poet Naomi Shihab Nye?
Yeah, good question.
And do you feed off one another? I take it you've never attempted a poem on your own, but I'm guessing.
Naomi works all the time. I mean, she has hundreds of journals and notebooks. There's no dichotomy between friendships and travel and work. It's all commingled into one thing. It's amazing how many books and how much work that she produces all the time, every year.
Well, we're so fortunate to have you both in San Antonio. Michael, Mikey Nye.